Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks, Yishu, for the invitation for this talk. My name is Chia-Wei. I'm currently a professor at the National Taiwan University. And for this year, I have my research sabbatical. So I am the visiting scholar at the Ross School of Business. So I really like to go back to Ann Arbor. And it's my honor to have this talk to all of you this afternoon. So today, the topic I'm going to talk about is add-up pricing and probabilistic selling. So for this hour, I'm going to talk about two papers. One of the paper has been published. The other one is the working paper. So I'm going to talk about both of this, and hopefully you guys have some feedback about this research. So before I jump to the topic, let me spend a little bit time about my own research interest. My research interests are in the field of revenue management or dynamic pricing. So for those of you who know the revenue management, it can date back to the deregulation of the passenger airlines in 1978. And the passenger airline companies like to just adjust the price over time, depending on different conditions. So for example, at the end of this year, I wanna take my daughters to Disney and Orlando. So normally the ticket price from DTW to Orlando is about $250, right? Of course, if you take Spirit Airlines, of course, it's much cheaper. But this time when I bought the flight ticket, I found because it is the Christmas holiday, so the price go up to almost $600 for the round trip. Okay, so in addition to the passenger airlines, actually Disney is another one that is quite good at the dynamic pricing. So when I buy the ticket for Disney, I observed that there's a Genie Plus, the mechanism for the fast pass, but Disney just announced in October that they were price their tickets dynamically, meaning that they will determine the price on that day, depending on the attendance, depends on the weather condition, or so on and so forth. It means that you cannot buy the tickets in advance, so the total expense will depend on everything. Okay, that is actually the revenue management or dynamic pricing. So besides that, I also quite interested in the operations and marketing interface. But today, the topic I'm going to talk about, I want to pay more attention on the customer's behaviors, especially in the distribution channel, and how the retailer or the seller really makes the optimal pricing decisions in the supply chain. So the first paper I'm going to present, the topic is add-on pricing in a distribution channel. This is joint work with Chen Bo Ying in Shanghai University of Finance and Economics, and my colleague Huirong Huang, professor at NTU, and also Shangzhou and the Chinese University of Hong Kong. So bundling is actually the practice of selling two or more products as a package. So pretty much there are two different formats of bundling that exist in the market. So one is very commonly used, which is called the simultaneous bundling. The other one is the sequential bundling, or we call it the add-on pricing in our model. So what is simultaneous bundling? So for the simultaneous bundling, basically, the seller simply offer multiple products or services simultaneously at a bundle price. So there are a bunch of the examples. So for example, if you go to McDonald's and buy the combo meals, then the combo meals just include the burgers, the fries, the soda, and especially if you buy the Happy Meals, it will include some additional toy or gift. And also, like the passenger airlines, if you buy the air tickets of full service airlines, so most of the time it will just include everything, like the luggage check-in, like the meal on the plane, like in-flight entertainments, and others. Not to mention, like when we use the mobile phone plans, we just pay the monthly subscription fee, and you will include the data, voice, and so on and so forth. Okay. But compared to the simultaneous bundling, for the sequential bundling, the seller simply just offer the product or services sequentially. So the seller simply sell one product first, and then he or she will just offer another product to those who have bought the first product. So most of the time we just call it the cross-selling, upselling, or in this paper we actually call it the add-on pricing. So there are still a lot of examples about the sequential bundling. So for example, like the online travel agents, they just offer the car rental or hotel room after the customers have booked the flight tickets, or the budget airlines, they sell other services like the luggage check-in or on-flight meal after the customer have bought the tickets, or the online retailers just offer the extended warranty after the customers just buy the electronics products. Mm-hmm. So even in the same industry, different companies may adopt simultaneous bundling, or the others will use the sequential bundling. So for example, Netflix charge a monthly subscription fee that include the membership and the access to all movies and TV dramas. So under this case, the retailer will decide the bundle. But on the other hand, iQIYI, which is a Netflix-like company in China, it will just charge a VIP fee upfront and a per movie fee for newly released movies. So under this case, the customers will decide the bundle. So in this case, we will consider there's a distribution channel with one retailer and two manufacturers. So one manufacturer, we call it M1, it sells a base product, but the other manufacturer called M2, it will sell the add-on product via the retailer. And the add-on product is only available to the customers who already bought the base product. Mm. So the retailer will decide whether to sell the product simultaneously or sequentially, and also determine the corresponding retail price. So in addition to these two different selling strategies, we also consider there are 4 different channel structures. So we consider the full integration, meaning that the retailer and the two manufacturers are integrated as a firm, and they will make all the decisions together. And we also consider the partial integration, meaning that the retailer can be integrated with M1 only or integrated with M2 only. And also we'll consider the independent first, meaning that all the players in the distribution channel, and they will decide the pricing decision separately. So if that is the independent manufacturers, then the manufacturer will charge a wholesale price. So let me quickly just go through the model. Okay, so for the simultaneous bundling, M1 and M2, these two manufacturers just charge a wholesale price W1, W2 at the cost of C1 and C2. So having seen the wholesale price from these two manufacturers, the retailer will bundle the products together and charge a bundle price PB to the end customers. So having seen this retail price, the customers will make their purchase decision depending on their valuation of the product. So here we just assume V1 is the valuation for the base product, and V2 is the valuation for the add-on product. And these V1 and V2 are independently and uniformly distributed on the line 0 and 1. And of course, we just assume the market size is 1. So the consumer will purchase the bundle products as long as their sum of valuations, or V1 or plus V2 minus bundle price PB, is non-negative. So that is the decision for the simultaneous bundling. But how about the sequential bundling? So under the sequential bundling, these two manufacturers also make their wholesale price decisions, W1 and W2. But have seen the wholesale price, the retailer will first sell the base product at the price of P1 to the end customers. So for those of customers who already bought the base product, the retailer will offer another product called the add-on product at the price of P2 to these consumers. So here we just assume a consumer just purchased the add-on products only if she has bought the base product. And again, the consumer are not strategic, meaning that when consumer makes the purchase decision on the base product, he or she just know the price of the base product. He doesn't know the price P2. So the consumer's utility of buying the base product is V1 minus P1. And for those of them who already bought the base product, the overall utility of buying the bundle is V1 plus V2 minus the sum of these two retail price, P1 plus P2. Okay, so under this research, we are trying to answer the following research questions. We want to know how does the channel structure really affect the retailer's bundle price, and what are the asymmetric effects of the base product manufacturers and the add-on product manufacturers, and can consumers benefit from the sequential bundle compared to the simultaneous bundle. Okay. So this research is of course related to several existing literatures about the bundling, add-on pricing, but since this is not the point for today, so I just skip this slide and just tell you that I really do the literature review for this research. Okay, so let me spend more time on how to analyze this model and what are the main findings in this paper. For the simultaneous bundling, depending on how large the bundle price PB is, then the sales of the bundle will be different. So here you can see that if PB is greater than 1, then the sales of the bundle is going to be 2 minus PB squared divided by 2. But if PB is too small, then QB will be in another form. Then after we got this sales of the bundle, then we can formulate the retailer's profit and the manufacturer's profits accordingly. But for the sequential bundling, because this is like the two-step selling scheme, so first, the retailer will sell the base product at the price of P1 to the customers who are able to afford it. And for those of them, the seller will provide another add-on product. So if we just consider the sales of the base product and the add-on product, it's a little bit different from the simultaneous bundling. So Q1 here is the sales of the base product, which is 1 minus P1, and Q2 is the sales of the add-on product. So pretty much we just formulate the sales, the retailer's profit, and the manufacturer's profit. Okay, so in this research, we not only want to compare the simultaneous bundling and the sequential bundling, we just also want to know that under 4 different structures, how the effect of coming from the margin or the demand really influence the optimal selling strategies of the seller. So here is the finding. First, we consider the benchmark in where the retailer and the 2 manufacturers just integrate as a firm. So we just found out there exists one region that the simultaneous bundling just dominates the sequential bundling. Let me use the following slide to tell you the details. So for this figure, you can see that C1, which is the cost of the base product, this is at the x-axis, and C2 as the y-axis just denote the cost for the add-on product. And our result just showed that the retailer will use the sequential bundling if C1 is small, but C2 is large. On the other hand, the retailer will use the simultaneous bundling if C1 is high and C2 is small. The reason is that, remember for the simultaneous bundling, the retailer can enjoy what is called the demand smoothing effect. What does this mean? Remember, the utility of the customers is as long as his or her valuation, V1 plus V2 is higher than the bundle price, then he will buy the bundle product. No matter V1 is high, but V2 is low, or V1 is low, but V2 is high. As long as the overall valuation is high enough, That is called the demand smoothing effect. So under simultaneous bundling, actually the retailer can enjoy the demand smoothing effect. But for the sequential bundling, you can see that it can just have the flexibility of setting two separate prices for two products. So if C1 is too high, then the retailer cannot choose the ideal selling price. Because when C1 is high, then the corresponding P1, the retail price of the base product, is high accordingly. But if C2 is high, then the retailer has some choices. Maybe he or she will simply just sacrifice the add-on profit and just focus on the sales of the base product. So that's why we have this result. And in the up left-hand side, the retailer just prefer adopting the sequential bundling, but in the bottom right-hand side, the simultaneous bundling is the optimal. So we use this as a benchmark and to see how the other structures really different compared to the benchmark. So here we just consider one partial integration in which the retailer just integrates with M1, the base products manufacturers. So under this case, M2 just set the wholesale price W2 to sell the add-on products to the retailer. So under this case, we also compare the optimal selling strategies between these two bundling. And we also found the simultaneous bundling dominates the sequential bundling under some conditions. And this region is smaller than the previous one. So let me still use the figure to show you the details. So remember, in the benchmark, we have the C1 and C2 as the axis. And dotted line here, just the indifferent selling strategies for the benchmark. And for this case, we found that the retailer is more likely to adopt the sequential bundling. So what is the reason? For the simultaneous bundling, it still has the demand smoothing effect. And also, since M2 is independent, so the M2 set its own price will hurt the selling format. Because for the simultaneous bundling, it needs to include base product and add-on products together. So if M2 is independent, he or she has the incentive to upward the wholesale price so that the bundle price is going to be very, very high. So the retailer is less likely to adopt the simultaneous bundling. But for the simultaneous bundling, it also makes the retailer suffer the margin squeezing effect from the add-on manufacturer M2. So that's why we see throughout this region, simultaneous bundling is not that optimal from the retailer's perspective. So here, we also want to know whether the consumer can benefit from the sequential bundling, okay, under the partial integration case. So we also found there is some region that the consumer really benefits from sequential bundling. So that is located at the up left side. So in this case, we found that the simultaneous bundling, for the simultaneous bundling, M2 has more flexibility to set W2, but for the sequential bundling, M2 just concern the sales of the add-on products, so the retailer will respond with a higher P2. So under this case, simultaneous bundling has the weakness because he has to combine these two products together, so the PB is gonna be higher than the sum of P1 plus P2. So that's the region actually we found that the optimal selling strategy is the sequential bundling, and under this region, the consumers just pay less compared to the simultaneous bundling. Okay. So another partial integration is actually the case when retailer and M2 are integrated. So under this case, M1 serves as the independent manufacturers and sets the wholesale price W1 to sell the base product to the retailer. And we also find some regions under which the simultaneous bundling dominates the sequential bundling. And we found that under this case, actually, the result just reversed. The retailer is more likely to adopt the simultaneous bundling. So that is because the existence of the margin smoothing effect. Okay, what does this mean? For the simultaneous bundling, it still benefit from the demand smoothing effect, but it can also benefit the retailer due to the margin smoothing effect. That means since the M1 is the independent manufacturers, okay, so the retailer can just evaluate the wholesale price for the base product and wholesale price for the add-on product. So just use the margin smoothing effect to balance the price and set a reasonable bundle price to the end customers. But for the sequential bundling, because base product is necessary, so if M1 is independent, so he or she has an incentive to set a very, very high wholesale price W1. So under this case, if the retailer uses the sequential bundling, he has to set the P1 as very, very high range. And under this case, it will hurt the sales of the base product and also the sales of the add-on product. So that's why we call this is the margin smoothing effect for the simultaneous bundling. So we also found that under this case, when retailer and M2 are integrated, then we found some regions where the consumers can also benefit from the sequential bundling. And this is just right in this small region, okay? So the reason is quite reasonable and simple. So the simultaneous bundling, M1 sets a high W1, so the retailer needs to set a high PB as well. But for the sequential bundling, retailer cannot set a too high P1 because he just concerned the sales of the base product and also the add-on product. So under this case, for the sequential bundling, the retailer tend to set a lower price, try to attract some customers. So that's why in this region, we found that the consumers under sequential bundling will benefit from the price. So finally, we also consider a special case when no players are integrated. That means the retailers and the two manufacturers just make the pricing decisions separately. So under this case, we can also use this figure to show you the details. So remember, in the previous three cases, the benchmark and the two partial integration case, we just show you there are several effects: the demand smoothing effect, the margin smoothing effect, and the margin squeezing effect. The first two effects just benefit the simultaneous bundling. However, the margin squeezing effect just benefits the sequential bundling. So when no players integrate together, under this case, we just observe that these three drivers just interplay each other. So that's why we observed here, compared to the benchmark, the retailer is more likely to adopt sequential bundling compared to the simultaneous bundling. And also under this non-integrated retailer, consumer never benefit from sequential bundling. Okay. So to conclude, in this research, we actually studied the retailer's choice between the simultaneous bundling and the sequential bundling in a distribution channel when the retailer just sells the base product and the add-on products. And in this research, we just observed three different effects: the demand smoothing effect, the margin smoothing effect, and the margin squeezing effect. And these three effects just interplay each other so that the retailer may choose one selling strategy as opposed to another, and the consumers may benefit from sequential bundling or not. And here we just show the finding that the customers may benefit from the sequential bundle when the retailer just integrates with only M1 or only M2, but the consumers cannot enjoy a discount when all the firms are independent. So for this research, actually, we try to discuss several extensions, but because of limit of time, so I just list the topics we are done in our paper. So if you are interested, you can simply scan this QR code to find a paper. It already published in PONS in 2021. And that is the first research topic I'm going to present for today. And followed by the first research, actually in the second research, we also want to investigate the customer's preference. So not only we talk about the bundling selling, here we just want to take into account another very popular scheme called the probabilistic selling. So this paper is a working paper, and I've done this work with my PhD student, Zhang Yongxun, and Professor Huang Kuilong at the National Taiwan University. So first, in many industries, just adopt different selling strategies to enhance their profits. And in particular, when selling multiple products, probabilistic selling and bundle selling are widely used for firms to penetrate into more market segments and the price discriminate among the customers. However, different selling strategies have different effects on market segmentation. So the concept of probabilistic selling can be traced back to the third-party travel website, including the Priceline.com and Hotwire.com in the travel industry. So when searching for the travel product, consumers have limited flexibilities in choosing the characteristics of the airline tickets or hotel rooms. They do not have precise information regarding which airline to take, the exact departure time, and which hotel to stay. So this limited flexibility actually allow the firms to serve those who prefer to pay less for the inconvenience of the schedule. And also, during the period of pandemic, some companies also adopt the same selling strategies. For example, the Peach Aviation and several airlines in China, they launched the so-called flying blind promotion to sell flight tickets without revealing the flight destination. So in 2021, Peach Aviation provided the blind box consisting of one of two book values for the domestic flight tickets. One is 12,000 Japanese yen, and the other is 20,000 Japanese yen. And they all sold it at only 10,000 Japanese yen to attract customers. Similar implication can be also observed in a variety of the industries, such as the handicraft, swingswear, and toys. So for example, Swing Outlets just sells a single swimsuit for $24.99, but allow the consumers to pay $13.95 for the same category with randomly chosen color and appearance. And also in Asia, a toy manufacturer called Pop Mart, they offer a toy selection of blind box for purchase. So the consumer can only select such blind box without knowing the exact product inside the box. So in 2021, the sales of the blind box at Pop Mart reached to 4.4 billion RMB in that year. So in addition to the probabilistic selling, bundle selling is another tool for selling multiple products. So the firms sell multiple products together with a discount to the consumers with relatively lower valuation of the product. So with the adoption of bundle selling, firms can liquidate their inventories more efficiently and receive a better profit margin. So for example, like this Amazon.com package. So it offers a package that includes a keyboard, a mouse, an earphone, and a mouse pad together at a price of $149.99. But consumers have to pay almost $300 if they purchase all the products separately. Such buying strategies also apply in industries such as the cable TV and online service platform. So for example, Spectral TV just bundled 25 channels for $19.95 per month without any contract. So these firms can take advantage of the pooling effect or the demand smoothing effect we just mentioned in the previous paper to serve different market segments. And the bundle product can fulfill the needs of the customers with different variations. So from the existing literature, we know that both probabilistic selling and the bundle selling can use the price discrimination to enhance their profit, but in different ways. For the probabilistic selling, we just consider different consumers' preference. Like a previous example I just mentioned, for the swimwear, some customers like the swimwear in red, but others like the swimwear in blue. And also a small portion of the customers would not care whether it's the red or in blue, so they just prefer to buy the probabilistic product. But on the other hand, for the bundle selling, the seller just use the product differentiation. So the seller can offer the product A and product B and product A plus B as the bundle, and to serve two different customers with different variations. So in this research, we are going to answer the question like this. We want to know what are the optimal prices and the associated profits of the selling strategies under each strategy, and what are the driving factors that will influence the choice of the optimal strategy, and what is the optimal one, either probabilistic selling, bundle selling, or just traditional selling. And again, I will skip this slide. Pretty much, we just compared the papers in probabilistic selling and the bundle selling, and you can see that a lot of papers just compared the different schemes with the traditional selling. But our paper is the first one to combine all of them together, and want to show that what are the effect that will influence the retailer to pick one as opposed to another. So here, I just want to spend some time to talk about the model. So here our model just consider the hoteling line. So the seller just offer two products, product A and product B, at the cost of C and CB. And product A is located at 0 of the hoteling line, and product B is located at 1 of the hoteling line. And the customers are uniformly distributed along the hoteling line. And here the X is actually the relative location of the customers. And we here just use T as the per unit distance utility. So that just represents the horizontal differentiation of the products between product A and product B. Okay. So besides the adoption of the hoteling line, in our model, we just assume in the market, there are two types of the customers. Some customers just prefer buying one product, and we assume the probability is alpha. And the other portion of the customers who prefer buying multiple products if possible. So in this case, we just assume there are 3 different selling strategies. For the traditional selling, the seller just offered product A and product B separately. And for the probabilistic selling, not only the product A and product B that the retailer will offer, and the retailer will offer another one called the probabilistic product. Okay, so here we assume the consumer who buy the probabilistic product will obtain the product A or B with equal probability. So finally, if the retailer just adopt the bundling strategy, then now in addition to product A and B, the seller just use product A and B as a bundle and sell to the end customers. So here we just assume the customers have different variations. It's pretty much the traditional assumption for the hoteling line. But here we just follow the papers from Bell in 1985 and use this K to denote the gap of the degree between election and disappointment. So meaning that if K is positive, then the customers like the offer of the probabilistic product. But if K is negative, that means the consumer dislike the offer of the probabilistic product. So you will see in a few minutes later, K plays a major role to determine the optimal selling strategy. Okay, so here I just briefly give you the formulation of the customer's preference if they prefer buying one product. And also in the next slide, if the customers prefer buying multiple products with the probability 1 minus alpha, and here are a bunch of the formulation for their preference. Okay, but one thing in our paper is that if the customers simply want to buy one product, then the retailer will not use the bundle selling, because if the retailer use the bundle selling, they simply offer product A and B together. That is multiple product case. So for the alpha case, or the customers want to buy only one product, we just skip the bundle selling. All right, so this is the sequence of events. First, the seller just select one of the three strategies, either traditional selling, probabilistic selling, or the bundle selling. And then the consumer observe the product and the price and make their purchase decisions based on their valuation of the product. And finally, the seller will collect the profit from the consumers based on the selling strategies they have. Okay. So in the following, let me just show you some important findings in our paper. So first, we just consider the extreme case where alpha is equal to 0, meaning that all the consumers just prefer purchasing multiple products. So I just show you some distribution of the consumers along the hoteling line. For example, under the traditional selling, along the hoteling line, there may be some customers who buy product A only and buy product B only, okay? But if the customers are in the middle of the hoteling line, eventually they probably will buy A and B together. And also for the probabilistic selling or the bundle selling, we also can see a variety of different distribution of the customer's demand along the hoteling line. So for example, like the bundle selling. So in addition to the portion of the consumers who buy the product A only, which is located at the very left-hand side of the hoteling line, and also some customers simply buy product B, which is located at the very right end of the hoteling line. And for those of them who located in the middle, eventually they will buy the bundle product. Okay, and for the probabilistic selling, the situation is a lot more complicated. So you can observe that there are 5 different regions, especially for the middle stream regions. For some customers who are not that into product A and product B, they will probably buy the probabilistic product first. And if they find out this product is not what they need, they probably will choose another one. So for example, like the case when VA greater than 0, VB less than 0, and the VA is less than VO. And in this case, the customers simply just buy the probabilistic product first. And if they get the product A eventually, then they will stop without any purchase. But if what end up that probabilistic product is product B, then for this kind of customers, they will pretty much just buy the product A again. So we just discussed several different situations of the demand distribution along the hoteling line. So here, let me just show you the results. So for the case when all the consumers want to buy multiple products, here we show that when both costs C and CB are smaller, then the optimal selling strategy is going to be the bundle selling. But when both costs are higher enough, then all the selling strategy will be degenerate back to the traditional selling. So this result, this finding is quite interesting because according to the paper by Fei and Xie in 2008, the seller will adopt probabilistic selling when the production cost is low, pretty much like the case we have here. The optimal selling strategy is the bundle selling. Since all consumers prefer to buy both products, under the bundle selling, the seller would be better off to bundle both products together and grab the maximum profit margin when costs are very, very low. But when the both costs are very, very high, the bundle selling hurts the seller because she has to raise the selling price, which reduces the market price, the market size, and therefore the seller will switch to adopting the traditional selling. So the difference between ours and the paper by Fei and Xie is that probabilistic selling is never chosen, even though the probabilistic selling is commonly used to price discriminate and attract low valuation consumers, like the examples I just gave you earlier. But in this case, when all the consumers want to buy multiple products, we show that probabilistic selling is never optimal. And we also show that under this case, the optimal selling price is not monotonic in terms of their cost. So here you can see that I just divide the figures into three different groups. So for the case when CA, the cost of product A is below 0.6, although the retailer just used the bundle selling, but under this case, because the cost is too low, then the seller will provide the bundle products so that all the consumers along the hoteling line will buy the bundle products. But if CA keep increasing in the region between 0.6 to 0.8, although the seller still use the bundle selling, but small profit margin makes the retailer to change the demand distribution along the hoteling line. So under this case, the seller tends to lower the selling price of PA and PB, okay, to attract some customers simply buy one product at the end. So in this case, some customers will buy the product A, and some customers will buy product B, and the customers in the middle will buy the bundle product. And also you can observe from this region, the PA, the retail price of product A is not increasing in its production cost. That is because in this case, the retailer needs to use the low retail price of product A and B to attract some customers to buy only one product to maintain her profit margin. But if CA is large enough, larger than 0.8, then the retailer will just use the traditional selling. So that is the case for the multiple product case. So if we consider another extreme case, alpha equals to 1, or all consumers just purchase one product. And here we can also consider several different demand distributions or along the hoteling line. So here you can see for the traditional selling along this hoteling line, some customers will buy product A, and some customers will buy product B, and for some customers in the middle, they probably will not buy anything at the end. And also for the probabilistic selling, since all consumers simply buy one product, so you can see even some customers will buy the probabilistic selling products when they are located in the middle. But if it turns out the product is not they like, they still have no choice because that is the only one product case. So we also do the comparison between the probabilistic selling and the traditional selling. And as you can see here, the pattern is quite similar to the previous case. So when cost is quite low, the retailer will use the probabilistic selling. But when cost is high enough, then they will switch to the traditional selling. But the reason I put two figures here is in the left-hand side, the K is positive, okay, meaning that the consumer dislikes the offer of the probabilistic selling. And in the right-hand side, K is negative. That means the customers like the over of the probabilistic selling. So if you compare these two figures together, you can see that the retailer is more likely to adopt the probabilistic selling when K is negative. So you probably may wonder whether it is beneficial for the seller if K is quite small. I mean, it's negative and small. But the answer is no. Here I show you the figure of different K the effect of different K on the optimal profit for these two selling strategies. So for the x-axis, K is from -1 to -0.2, and the y-axis just represents the profit of the retailer when he just adopt the probabilistic selling or the traditional selling. So you can see that if K is equal to -0.2, adopting probabilistic selling is beneficial for the seller compared to the traditional selling. But if K is equal to -0.8, then the result just reverse. So under this case, even K is small and negative, but the seller would rather adopt traditional selling. The reason is that when K is very, very small, I mean negative and small, all the consumers like the over of the probabilistic selling. So under this case, almost everyone will buy the probabilistic product, but we all know that the seller will provide a discount for the probabilistic product. So if all the customers just buy the discount one, they will hurt the profit margin and the market size of the seller. So in that case, even K is very, very small in the negative way, and it does not beneficial for the retailer to offer or adopt the probabilistic case. Finally, we just consider the general case in which alpha is strictly between 0 and 1. Okay, so in this case, we just consider two different situations. In the left-hand side, both the production cost C and CB are high enough, but in the right-hand side, the production costs are very, very small. So let's start with the left-hand side, and we use T, the degree of preference for the degree of the horizontal differentiation of the product. And in the y-axis, this is the proportion of the customers who prefer buying one product or multiple products. So here we can see that if T is small, then the seller is more likely to adopt either the bundle selling or the probabilistic selling. Okay, that will depend on how large the alpha is. But when T is large, then the seller would rather adopting the traditional selling. Okay, that is because when T is high, it's very, very difficult for the seller to offer the bundle product or the probabilistic product, because when T is very high, that means these two products vary a lot. So the customers may not like the offer of the combo or the bundle product. But on the other hand, if you observe the right-hand side, the result just reversed. When T is very small, then the retailer just use the traditional selling. But when T is very, very high, then the seller will switch to the probabilistic selling or the bundle selling. So it means that, of course, T or the horizontal differentiation of the products will influence the adoption of the selling strategy. But it is not always true that when T is small, then the seller will use PS or BS here. Okay, it should combine with the conditions where the cost of the products are low enough or high enough, then the seller will determine different selling strategies accordingly. Okay, so that is the pretty much the findings in our paper. So to conclude, we just built a model to determine the optimal price in different strategies for the seller. So we found that if all consumers purchase multiple products, alpha is equal to 0, then the optimal strategy is going to be bundle selling when both costs are low, but switch to the traditional selling when the costs keep increasing. And also, if all consumers purchase only one product, and the pattern is very similar. When costs are low, then the optimal strategy is probabilistic selling, but costs are high, then it will switch to the traditional selling. But if all consumers purchase only one product, even though the degrees of election K have the seller when offering the probabilistic product, but we still find the advantage continue to decrease when the degree is smaller, like the figures I just showed you. And that's if the market consists of both type of the consumers, then the seller's optimal strategies depends on not only the cost of the products, but also the horizontal differentiation of the products. Okay, so that would be the finding of our second paper. So for these two papers, pretty much I just want to investigate how the consumer's preference really influence the optimal selling strategies. We put more focus on the bundling strategy, probability selling, and we try to find some driving factors and some effect that will influence the choice of the optimal selling. Okay, so that will be all. Thank you for your listening.